Dear viewers, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, we shall discuss the Old English poetry in two heads. In one head, the heroic, elegiac, and secular poems, and another head, the poems which are religious or Christian poems. So, we can divide Old English poetry into two categories: pagan poems, poems which have pagan origin, and poems which are Christian or religious poems. So, Old English poetry into two, we can divide Old English poetry into two categories. Old English poetry in two categories: pagan and religious. Pagan and religious poetry of Old English period or Anglo-Saxon period. Beowulf, the Battle of Meldon, the Seafarer, the Wanderer belong to the first group, first head, belong to the pagan poems, and the religious poems contains poetry of the Cadmonian group and the poetry of the Sinulfian school or the poetry of Sinulfian group. Now, in this video, we shall mainly concentrate on the poems which have pagan origin, or we shall concentrate on pagan poetry of Old English period or Anglo-Saxon period. So the first poem that will come to our discussion is Beowulf. Beowulf. So our first poem is Beowulf. Beowulf. Most of the Old English poetry are short. Beowulf is the only long epic poem. The best known long text in Old English period is the epic poem Beowulf. The setting and the people of the text are both Germanic. Of its authorships, of its actual authorships, there is no evidence. We don't know who wrote the epic Beowulf. Neither we know its exact date of composition. Recent research tells that it was written in the middle of the 8th century, around the year 750. Like all extant text of Old English period, Beowulf also preserved in West Saxon dialects. It was composed. There is evidence that clear evidence that it was composed in some Anglian dialects, whether Mercian or Northumbrian is uncertain. It was written either in Mercian or in Northumbria. You know the four dialects of Old English period: Northumbria, Mercian, Kentish, and West Saxon. It is preserved in West Saxon dialects but written in some Anglian dialects. Whether Mercian or Northumbria is uncertain. Let us come to the story of the epic. The story of the epic. The story of the epic. There are so many episodes and digression in the poem, in the story of the epic, that it is very difficult briefly to give a synopsis of the narrative. However, it introduces a hero whose name is Beowulf, son of Ezeus, king of Getas, king of Getas. He sails to Denmark. Beowulf sails to Denmark with a band of warriors and reads the Danish king Hrothgar Hrothgar of a terrible mere monster called Grendel. And the mother of Grendel, seeking vengeance for the death of his son, meets the same fate. And Beowulf, fittingly feasted and rewarded, returns to his land. He becomes the king of Getas, and after a prosperous reign of 40 years, he slays a fire-spitting dragon that had ravaged his land, and in the fight he receives a wound to which he succumbs and dies. The epic comes to an end with the funeral ceremonies in honor of the dead kings. So this is the story of the epic Beowulf. So from the story we can say that Beowulf can be read in many ways as a myth, as a history of a nation, as a tragedy, as an epic, as an elegiac poem. The next poem that will come to our discussion as heroic poem is the Battle of Meldon. The Battle of Meldon. The Battle of Meldon. The Battle of Meldon. After Beowulf, the heroic poem as a heroic poem that will come to our discussion is the Battle of Meldon, which is more factual and less fanciful in nature. It describes a battle that took place in 993 with a celebration of honor, fidelity, bravery at the face of defeat as an Anglo-Saxon army tried their best to to fight against the mighty Viking raid. It is an extant poem. It has only 325 lines. The beginning and the ending of the poem had not yet been found, lost. So we have only got a portion of the original poem. And like views, we don't know who is the author of the Battle of Meldon was. The date of the composition of the poem is assumed that it might have been written fairly close to the times of the events it describes, although it underwent many changes at the hands of the individual scopes or bards. Other texts whose subject matter is war are the fight at Finnsburg and the Battle of Brunanburg. So, Beowulf, a heroic poem, the Battle of Meldon, also a heroic poem, and poems of Old English period whose subject is war are the fight at Finnsburg, the Battle of Brunanburg. Battle of Brunanburg. Brunanburg. The fight at Finnsburg tells the fight that took place at Finnsburg, highlighting the conflict between the Danes and the Thracians in the migration period. The latter describes the battle that which took place in 937 between the King of England, between King of England and alliance, an alliance comprises the King of Scotland, King of Dublin, King of Wales. So these are the two sides that clash against one another. So Beowulf, the Battle of Meldon, the fight at Finnsburg, the Battle of Brunanburh, all are heroic poems. Of the secular poems of Old English period, Whitshit is one. It means a far traveler. It also known as a traveler's song. The poem describes a traveler. It is a poem of nearly 150 lines. It is a poem of 150 lines telling a traveler who is more imaginary than real, recounts the places and the illustrious people he has visited. From historical perspective, from historical point of view, the poem is important, but poetically it is of little merit. The next poem is The World Dear. It is a poem of two fragments, some 63 lines in all, and it is believed to be a part of an unknown epic. The poem remained unknown until 1860, when E.C. Werluf, a librarian of the Danish Royal Library, Copenhagen, Denmark, found these two incredible parchments. Notable lyrical and elegiac poetry of the Old English period are Deus Lament, the Seafarer, the Wanderer, the Wife's Lament, and Husband's Message are the notable lyrical and elegiac poetry of Old English period. Deor's Lament. Deor's Lament, simply known as Deor, otherwise known as Deor. Deor was a successful and popular poet. He laments. Deor's laments. He laments for losing his position of privilege. The speaker in the poem, after some objective reference to the day-to-day trials of life, recounts his own trouble. He was a successful bard or minstrel. He sang for a important family, but now another bard has taken his place. So great is his predicaments. However, the final tone of the poem is optimistic. The poet believes that the bad time will pass away. The poet uses a refrain in the poem that goes thus: "The evil ended, so also may this." He used this line repeatedly in his poem. In Deor's Lament, the speaker, the poet. The Seafarer and the Wanderer are the finest elegiac poems of Old English period, of Anglo-Saxon period, based on the theme of personal melancholy blending with spiritual salvation amidst solitude, exile, and suffering. Next, the Wife Laments and Husband's Message, also elegiac or meditative poems, like the above two, the Seafarer and the Wanderer. All these poems are preserved in the Exeter book, in the Exeter Library in Devon. The wife's laments for lost or absent of lover, while the husband message tells a story of a man who is forced to leave his land and wife, his family, due to a feud, and he writes message to his wife in which time, present, past, and future mingle, and love and hope aspire, as the speaker expresses his sincere love for his lady love and hopes to reunite with her. So this is all about the elegiac poems of the Anglo-Saxon period. So far, we have discussed in briefly all the Old English period which have pagan origin. So, dear viewers, please subscribe my channel and share the video among your friends. Thank you.